This has been happening for a while now. When it first started, I would get the feeling something was watching me when I was alone. I've always been the adventurous type and would regularly go out and explore the woods around my home. We lived in a rural town in Missouri, so forestation is everywhere. I never had a problem with seeing unexplainable things when I was younger. When things first started, I was 14, going through the woods trying to find a place to build a small log cabin. As I was searching, I started getting goosebumps, and the hair on my arms seemed to stand up. I ignored it and kept looking. Later that day, I got the feeling something was watching me. Living in such an isolated place, we have things like wild pigs, bears, mountain lions, but there were no signs of any of those near me. I started to worry a bit and decided to turn around and continue my search the next day. As I was walking back home, the feeling never left. I thought maybe I was just paranoid, and there was nothing there, so I stopped moving to listen for footsteps. At first, I could hear the sound of wind moving the tree branches, but after that stopped, I heard nothing. Remembering from a book I had read that you can't hear any animals around, there's a predator nearby. I knew I wasn't the predator, as the animals by my house were used to me walking around the woods. Realizing there was a bigger threat nearby, I started running back to my house. Until I had reached the house, the feeling of being watched was there. But the moment I stepped foot in the front door, it left. Things like that continued happening for a while, so I got used to it, but ever since about a month ago, things have changed. My first new encounter was after it had snowed. I lived in the second story of our house with a window viewing the neighboring fields and woods. I was sick at the time, so I had been in my room all day. Wanting some fresh air, I opened my window. As soon as I opened the window, I felt watched, as usual, but this time was different. It never happened while I was inside my house, nor did it ever feel this strong. Worried, I started scanning the tree line of the woods, which is about a football field away. But I have vision problems and my glasses had been broken just the day before from being stepped on. I've never been one for contacts, as they take time to get in. So wanting to see the tree line better, I went and grabbed a pair of binoculars. My pawpaw was a soldier in World War II, and the binoculars were one of the things he had brought back, whether he was allowed to or not. Knowing they would be good enough to see well at that distance, I took them up to my room. While I was grabbing them, I never got the feeling I was being watched, but when I stepped back into my room, it came back. I grabbed my chair and sat up in front of the window, scanning the tree line for anything. Eventually, I came to a stop, seeing something. It was a black mass that looked about 6.5 to 7 feet tall, peeping around the tree. I stared at it for a few minutes, seeing if it would move or if it was just my mind playing tricks on me. I turned to cough, and when I looked back, it was looking around the other side of the tree. Knowing it was staring at my house, or worse, at me, I ran downstairs and grabbed my mom, bringing her back up to show her. When we had gotten back to my room, it was gone. My mom has always been one to believe in the supernatural, so she didn't think I was crazy for seeing this. She told me to come get her if I see it again. A week later, nothing had happened, and I thought maybe it was just my vision blurring or a smudge on the lens. That night, no longer worried about it, I was going to bed. I was just about to fall asleep when I heard what sounded like my uncle yelling my name. I sprang up, turning my phone's flashlight on to see nothing in my room. Scared, I laid back down and tried to forget about it and go to sleep. Around 5 minutes later, I'm close to falling asleep when I hear a blood-curdling scream. I quickly sat up and turned the lights on. Closing my window this time, I was not the only one to hear something. My sister ran into my room asking if that was me. I told her it was, not wanting to scare her as she's a lot younger than me. She told me to shut the heck up and go to bed. I closed my door and sat awake in my room all night with the lights on. Morning came and I went about my day as usual. By the time night came, I'd almost forgotten about it. I laid down, locking my door as I didn't want to be woken up early the next day. About 15 minutes later, I started to fall asleep when I heard what sounded like my grandma outside my door asking me to let her in. I started praying to God, asking Him to help with what's been happening the past week. After the voice stopped, I eventually fell asleep. I woke up about 1:30 p.m. the next day, not bringing up what had happened the past 2 nights to my family. When I was about to go to bed that night, I decided to try an experiment. As the first night, the voice happened. My door was cracked open, and the next, it was shut and locked. I opened my door all the way before lying down. When I laid down, though, I heard tapping on my window. Ignoring it, I went to bed. Waking up the next day to take a shower, but when I did, I was about to get in the shower and I noticed markings on my body that I never noticed before. That day I looked up what had happened to me the past few days and came to the conclusion that what's been bothering me was a mimic. For those of you that don't know, mimics are creatures that can take voices of people familiar to you. These creatures gain strength from your fear and by you responding to them. With it growing stronger, it can take form into your family and friends, but these forms are distorted. Finding this out, I went over to my friend's house, who lives about 10 minutes away. Getting there, I told him about the things that had happened to me and what I think it may be. It took some convincing for him to believe me, but he eventually did. He's a very spiritual guy and offered to pray with me for me. I agreed and took his hand, and we began to pray. I felt a force trying to pull our hands apart. He felt it as well. Ever since then, I've still heard the voices, giving me a severe case of insomnia, as I've had a hard time sleeping. Things seem to be getting worse, and I wonder, what does that mean for me?